Chancellor. Just because that Zoom won't hear you. Mic test, 1, 2, test 1, 2.
There we go. Welcome to our town hall with our Executive Vice Chancellor, Wendy Hensel. Thank you so much for being here. So, usual, on behalf of the faculty, staff, and most importantly, the students of York College, welcome. Thank you for being here. As you can tell, we have quite a bit of activity on campus as usual, and we're very happy to have that. Today, we're going to participate in the conversation in town hall with our EVC. She has some opening comments for us, and then we will facilitate questions from the audience and then from the Zoom audience. I am sure that we will have people coming and going because it is that time of the day and people are dancing and having food and they're going to come back up here. And yes, exactly. But thank you for taking the time to be here and thank you, EVC, for being with us. Hand it over to you. Yeah. You don't need me to repeat that, did you? Well, it's kind of comments and then open it up to your questions about the role that Central plays. Today we started with the chapter 2 with the question, what exactly do? I'm happy to answer that question very well. The first thing I want you to know, I really adored this impression when I did this job. I did my research, I looked at the different campuses and how impressive your history of excellence is. But I don't think I had any idea of how excellent. By the end of today, I'm happy to say that I would have flown an airplane. I would have diagnosed a heart failure on a doll. Mannequins, thank you. I have eaten some excellent food downstairs, and I actually was getting ready to dance downstairs, so I had to come talk to you. Wow, really, truly, you guys rolled out the red carpet. What a vibrant environment that you have here. And I have to say, what always impresses me, of course, is what's going on around campus, but more so the people and the spirit and the energy that's communicated. And in my that feel really deeply about even though we're having some hard conversations, as there should be, when somebody comes to talk to you who has some authority. It's always the understanding that we're on the team to be better together. And that means a lot to someone like me sitting in my position, because it means there's a lot that's possible if we work together as a team and really be general. So thank you for that very warm. To tell you a couple of things, not here. You know, college of Washington State, and then a provost at Georgia State University, which is about 55,000 students. So a large institution, but nothing compared to students running across all 25 campuses. And I think because the mission here is the mission that drives me, and it's what gets me up in the morning and gets me excited about higher education. And that's the mission of moving our students to a new place. The fact that we get to stand in front of the classroom or make it happen behind the scenes. And potentially, in fact, not only the student that's sitting in front of us in their life trajectory, but potentially generations of their families thereafter, is an extraordinary privilege. And I never forget that. That's what gets me up every single day. So to see that in action, it was so fun. It was so fun to get out of the office and be with you all today. So thank you for that. I really do want to dance. So one thing I wanted to say, I'm going to stop most of these questions instead of giving any prepared remarks, but I think it's pretty clear to all of us talking with President James and Provost that change is on the horizon. The change is coming, it's here, and our job is not to avoid that change or react to that change, but to proactively engage in leading that change so that it takes us to a place as a college and as an institution that we want to go. And we have developed a strategic plan that came out of the conference here. It has a number of initiatives that hopefully not only will impact 25 campuses, but have a real meaningful impact here at your
particular, things like enrollment strategies, things like developing and online programs. We don't ask them, somebody said this morning, to do more with less, but to do more with more, recognizing that resources have to be invested in the institution. And so we can talk about all those things, or things that you're interested in, and I'm not going to leave the conversation, but just know that it means a lot, that you have been so welcoming, and that we are truly on the same side, standing shoulder to shoulder, working together to do the best that we can for all of us. I'll stop there.
And I'm going to open it up for questions. If you do have a question, please use the microphone over here. The important thing with the microphone is that it allows the people who are listening to actually.
Hello, how are you? I don't have a question, but I have a statement. Is it okay? Okay. Hello, Executive Vice Chancellor Hensel, President Ians, York staff, distinguished faculty and students. My name is Bernadette Perna, and I am a student leader, Vice President of the CUNY Coalition of Students with Disability, CCSD at York. I want to welcome the Executive Vice Chancellor to our beautiful campus and thank you and President Ians for all you do to ensure students with disabilities have access to assistive technology. I am proud to be a student registered with disability service. I'm proud to be a student registered with disability services who utilizes software, Otter AI, and a smart pen that allows me to successfully take notes. This software is used by students who are hard of hearing or have an invisible disability like me. This technology and others like it offer us equal access to higher education so we can better our lives and those of the ones we love. I can honestly say we are one York. Thank you. I do have one question, sorry. What can students like us ever do to help?
Exactly. It's so important that we use it is easy to get lost in a place as big as CUNY, even though you've got a smaller community here at home. And it's important that you speak truth to power. I tell my own children this, I tell myself this, and sometimes it's easier to sit and smile and nod and pretend that everything's fine than to stand up and be uncomfortable and say that change is necessary and that we need to move into spaces that are different, right? And I just particularly applaud you. Advocacy for people with disabilities is personal to me, and it's something that I spent my life doing. And so it just thrills me to have you stand up and deliver that with the conviction and the eloquence that you just did. So thank you for that.
Another question? Yeah. So I know there are some online questions which I can't read them for. Oh, hold on, wait, please. Resume.
Hi, everybody. My name is Linda Robato, the director of York College Learning Center, and welcome EVC Hensel, and thank you for visiting us. And in the voice of One York, I would like to say that at York College Learning Center, we have students on the non-credit bearing side of the college, and they're adult literacy students. York College has the largest adult literacy program in all of CUNY. And on the note of One York, we here at the Learning Center are so fortunate because your college embraces adult literacy students into all of their programming. For example, today, many of our students were part of the participation and, in the dancing and the eating. We were invited to come. Due to President Eames and Dr. Simons, the adult literacy program is really embraced. We get many services from the college. We encourage and direct many of our HSC graduates, high school equivalency graduates, to continue their education here at York. And because the campus is embracing of our students, they get a taste of what it's like to be on campus. They make friends with students who are enrolled in college classes. So it really is a wonderful place. And I just wanted to make you aware of another beautiful aspect of being here at your college. And we are One York. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Now, I love looking for nice things, right? And we try and familiarize myself with different communities that we have. I'll say, the time has come. It's kind of a beautiful moment where there are the hero of the tiny enrollment, but also the imperative to reach out more broadly and encompass the community and bring this in. Where those two things actually really align. I think it's telling that you are surprised or pleased, that you are welcome here and your students are welcome, when that should be an expectation of every campus that we have, that you are part of our community and something we're proud to help you advance wherever you are to wherever you want to go, whether that's college or skill or workforce development, even just, basic skill development. So just thank you for the work that you do, and it absolutely reflects incredibly well in the community that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Dr. Vincent Jones II in the Department of Health and Human Performance. And it's so nice to have you here and for this forum. So I'm a relatively new faculty member charged with reimagining an academic program. And what's of interest to me is learning about what you foresee resources being for not only course development initiatives for faculty, but also helping faculty to understand what is truly needed within the university as a whole to reduce redundancy or to actually draw people to our programs and to our programs in general, with so much competition and the ability to take classes virtually anywhere. So what do you see in terms of funding opportunities, support, and direction for faculty throughout the university? Thank you.
As well. That one thing that shared is the need to be proactive in curriculum development, meeting the needs of technology as it emerges, as opposed to constantly playing catch up with that. So one of the things we're engaged in right now is identifying a community-wide assessment of where opportunities are for demand and market. So where are the programs where there's demand that we don't have something that meets that need? We're speaking with workforce, with employers in the field, looking at different trends. And once we identify where there are gaps in what we provide, we will and identify opportunities to develop programs around these gaps. That's what I meant by more with more. We all recognize there is a need to move quickly, thoughtfully, quickly with faculty and driver seat in developing these things. But having the administration help you identify where are those opportunities, because that is a different skill set, right? And a different on the ground kind of data set. So that is coming. Part of that will relate to online program development, recognizing that many of our students can't access the education completely in person, and some of them need it completely online. So that programming will also involve resources in the Office of Academic Affairs at Central that will help you have the expertise, the training, and the development to create a high-quality program for our students. So I think, you know, as we start to get much more in tune in real time, where the opportunities are, where the strands are moving in terms of demand for capital and intellect and skills, we can be partners with our community and getting our community there, as opposed to throwing our hands up and saying it's unfortunate nobody wants to come back to school. So that's just a few things that we're working on right now. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to York. My name is Nazia Naeem. I'm the Director of Assessment at York College. So my question is, you mentioned the strategic plan earlier. And I see you talked about some of the areas that came up. Each year, we receive some guidance from the Chancellor as part of the CUNY PMP process. This year, we have not heard anything so far. Do you think, based on the feedback you have received as part of the strategic planning process, there will be some guidance regarding the PMP goals for this academic year?
Yeah, it's a great question because we measure what we care about, right? If we don't measure it, we don't really care about it. And this has been a conversation that we've been having pretty extensively with the Chancellor and with the Office of Academic Affairs. What I've seen many times, and I know some of you this will resonate, is we spend an awful lot of time putting together a strategic plan, right? We talk literally in CUNY space, more than 2,000 people engaged in these town halls, in the classes, writing it. And then what happens then is the question, right? Does it go in a drawer that we pull out 5 years later and hope that we made some progress, or does it actually become the blueprint for how we fund our priorities and how we build research? And so what I've asked my team to do already, you know, we're still waiting on the Board of Trustees to approve the plan, is to develop action plans each year, beginning this year, that identify very specifically what progress will be made for these very large goals and what deliverables will be expected at the end of each year, so that we don't count progress at 7-year intervals. We count it individually for short-term goals, medium and long-term, all at the same time. My team here can talk about it as playing chess. You can't look at one plane, you've got to be playing all three at the same time. And so I think that's true of the PMP too. There's a conversation the Chancellor is engaging in with my staff that does analytics to see what data exists, how can we use that more effectively to help the president identify what's working, what isn't, and support the efforts on the campuses to both differentiate, but also to create success at scale in conjunction with the system. So yes, I do think that's coming, and this strategic plan will be very concrete and action oriented.
I do have a question online from anyone.
So one of the questions from online is, how is CUNY planning to help campuses such as ours that are having enrollment challenges? So our budget relies heavily. Sorry, I'll repeat. The question is, how is CUNY planning to help campuses such as ours that are having enrollment challenges? Since our budget relies heavily on enrollment, we foresee some difficult years.
Every single one of us should be asking, right? Enrollment is an all-campus, all-system problem. It isn't an enrollment management problem. It isn't a student problem. It is a CUNY problem and a York problem. And it's a great example of what I just said about playing chess in 3D. We have to come at this from every game, right? So we're losing 18-year-olds. The demographic cliff has arrived. We know that. And so that is going to go down no matter what we do. So it kind of goes back to my point earlier about the literacy programs. This is actually an opportunity to rethink how we help people, who we bring in, and who we can connect in to the opportunity of higher education. To me, my online initiative that we're working on is essential to enrollment. because these are people that we're not cannibalizing from our in-person programs. Although it does also add to the in-person programs because it infuses flexibility, even for those students who can be in person and want that vibrant campus experience, but it brings in those who can't. And for the first time, we have a comprehensive enrollment strategy. We are going at this in terms of our 18-year-olds for sure, starting in middle school. You know, part of what we're finding is it's not good enough to go into the DOE as a junior or a senior. We need to be talking to the students and exposing them to community literally from the time they're in middle school. That not only creates a connection to us, but more importantly for them, creates a connection for their future where they see themselves in a place that they may not see themselves otherwise. So that's a big part of it with the Department of Education that we're working on. And then we have to think more broadly, and I can give you here, about workforce development, skills training, certificates, meeting the demand for knowledge at any level that's desired in an on-demand kind of scenario. You know, a good example is we are very, it's pretty archaic, right? I mean, it really is interesting. You would think that we evolve pretty quickly. We don't. We are reactive. We are not proactive. And so I think about things like, this may be controversial, but the academic calendar. Who decided, who woke up one day and said there should be 3 entry points into the semester and every class should be 10 weeks long or 12 weeks long? There are people that don't learn that way. They don't have time slots that way. They want to come in as they need it on demand in a way that makes sense for them. So I think it's a great opportunity to rethink what we do to be more consumer oriented without losing quality. That's a really important part. This isn't like, it isn't trade school. It isn't, we just want more bodies in the chairs. We want to advance your life goals with the services that we offer. And we can do that by opening the door wider and reaching a broader audience. So it's multifaceted. It's on all of those levels, and look forward to working with you on this.
Thank you.
Are there more questions? Yes. 1 minute. Microphone's coming.
Good afternoon. My name is Yasser Saleh, and I'm the president of the Community Coalition for Students with Disabilities here at York. I have one question. One of the issues I ran into as a disabled student and the transition from in-class to online was I felt as though my needs weren't really being kept up with because of the online culture being like, since you're at home, you know, you don't really need accommodations. Do you think that maybe getting, because York is an accredited online institution, do you think that getting more professors that are more proficient already teaching online, like certified online professors, is more important in terms of what you're saying about being proactive instead of reactive?
Let's talk about a lot here that's important to think about, right? First of all, not everything will work for every student. That's part of the reason creating opportunities in different ways to engage makes sense, right? Just as I'm talking about different types of schedules are better for different people, different formats are better too. You may learn better in an intensive 2-week, immersion for a single class than for 12 weeks. I think all of those things are important as a threshold matter. But what's underneath your question is what I'm talking about comparable to what you've experienced as part of it? And the answer is no. What we have our students, those of you who have lived through the last years with the rest of us, you experience an involuntary insertion into an online course, right? A course that wasn't designed with you in mind and not with any particular expertise on the part of the faculty. That's not their fault. This is really hard stuff to do well. And we had to do it. We had no choice. We had to turn on a dime. So I'm extremely proud of the faculty for being able to step up and deliver to the best of their ability. But in moving forward, much more is required. Significant training, significant expertise, It is not a face on a Zoom screen. That is not online education. Yeah. So the commitment is not just to change the modality, it's to increase the quality substantially so that your experience, your student success, your engagement is comparable regardless of the modality in which you choose to engage. That's a hard thing to do. That will take time. And that's part of the reason we're concentrating those at Central, because rather than having each campus build up very expensive set of services, at least here at the beginning, we will be the service center for you so that we can escalate and engage your engagement more quickly. At a very high level. Great question.
So actually, I have a question around experiential learning. So what role do you see experiential learning being in the attainment of a degree, and how do you see the individual campuses in Phoenix Central that's partnering to enable that?
So I would say one of the things I was most surprised about and disappointed a bit when I took over this position was finding out that our students are not graduating into positions commensurate with that they're actually underemployed for the degree that they have secured. Now, obviously not everyone, but a higher percentage than I would like to see. And one of the ways out is for us, first of all, to seriously raise our profile with employers. If 80%, 90% of our students are staying within the New York area, that is an opportunity for us to concentrate and leverage relationships that help you reach higher places than you otherwise might. So for example, a few weeks ago, I met with Jamie Diamond, who I will admit, I did not know who Jamie Diamond was. So I went home and mentioned it to my husband. And for those of you who are like, who's Jamie Diamond? He is the head of Chase Bank, and he's on social media all the time. So he's sort of a figure, if you will. He is committed to getting CUNY students into jobs, every job at the highest echelon, and is putting money into work to make that happen. You are what they need, and you should know that, right? What do they say that they need and want? They need talent first and foremost, and they need diverse talent. And we have it in spades. And so why are we not the option of choice for these folks as opposed to being a secondary option? So bring that back to your point. Any type of experiential education that gets you into an employer, which shows you and gives you a chance to demonstrate that excellence that you have from your coursework here, can only elevate and exponentially accelerate that process. So I know one of the signature initiatives under the next strategic plan will be to identify new pathways toward experiential learning, and more importantly, paid experiential learning to the highest extent possible.
Yes. Thank you very much for being here, EVC Hensel, great fan Bell. And as the director of the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Educational Technologies, I am very pleased with some of the remarks that you gave here about very innovative practices for higher ed. I also am the co-chair of the CUNY IT conference, and I want to thank you for having accepted to be the keynote at the conference. I'm very much looking forward to hearing your remarks there, but I thought maybe here you can give us a little foretaste of what your thoughts are about technology in higher ed.
Obviously, it has a role in the classroom, right? So that's really cool today in the simulation lab. I mean, that's I felt like I was whisper. So that's really, as a learning tool, technology is tremendous, and we need to find a way to be ahead of that. Like, I fear that if we're constantly 10 years behind because it's expensive in the adoption of these things, all we do is cement our place where we are. So we've got to find a way to. Where I come in a little bit differently is my background. I mentioned I was at Georgia State University for the last 25 years or so, 22. My daughter was 3 months old when I started. She's now a master's student in social work. So it gives me some sense of how long it's been there. And what they've done, they are most innovative public university in the country behind Arizona State. And it's because of how they thought through the use of technology to replicate safety nets and advising in ways that can't be done at scale with a high-touch human being. And so we've got some tremendous programs here, right? You've got ACE, Engage, College Town, we talked about this a little bit earlier. They're all very expensive, very high-touch programs. What I've seen in my own professional life at Georgia State and would like to bring here is replicating that touch with artificial intelligence so that it reaches a broader scale and elevates to scale. So that it isn't a pocket here, a pocket here. This group gets served, this group doesn't, but everyone has access to that in a way that at Georgia State has eliminated all equity gaps. There is no difference in graduation rates based on socioeconomic status, race, or gender because of the implementation. A lot of good work we can do there. We have some things already in play. I'd like to make them more broadly available and see where we can go with that. I think there is a tremendous opportunity.
I hope this gets working. So I really appreciated your comments earlier, at the earlier hour on collaboration, encouraging collaboration, not just between departments at one school, but between more than one school in the CUNY system, either on degree programs or other efforts. And as I mentioned in gerontology, it's already very interdisciplinary and interdepartmental. Here at York, I would like it to be more collaborative with other schools that have courses in aging and gerontology that I can't teach here. And you had some great ideas about collaboration. If you don't mind, for those who didn't hear it earlier.
Central cannot be the bureaucratic path that keeps you from achieving your goals here at York. The one that for that, that's fine, but it's true, right? We have to be value added and bring to the table things that you can't do by yourselves because you don't have the resources or that you don't have access to the kind of expertise that there is so much potential here if we get out of the siloed way of thinking that's entirely competitive from campus to campus. We can't totally get away from that, right? I mean, we are York, we are York, or what was the, I guess,
One York.
One York. I mean, leave saying one York. And that's good. I mean, that's important to have that identity and that distinctiveness. But there are ways to elevate common threads and mission and programs where maybe you don't have enough students here to put up a master's degree program, but around 4 or 5 there are, and you might put it online so that geography disappears as a negotiator for where those things go. What keeps us from doing that? We do. We are our own worst enemy in terms of administrative structure, how we reimburse for classes, who gets the money for this, who gets the credit for this. We need to shift that mindset to be a collaborative federation or whatever word we want to do, where together we are much more than the sum of our parts, but we still respect the parts to have those individual identities. So I think actually I'm hearing a lot of conversation in that space, and I'm excited about what's going to come out of that.
So I guess I have another question, this one around faculty support and professional development. So in general, there's often a lot of support for junior faculty for them to become assistant to tenured associate. But then there tends to be a lack of support to make that next jump from associate to full professor. What role do you see CUNY Central having in help supporting that process?
I think that's a great example of what I just talked about, right? Because for you to develop a program requires a lot of time, effort, resources, and engagement for a targeted population. We can do that at scale. We can bring, you might contribute one day to that as opposed to 10 days, where we can elevate that teaching and learning substantially by being able to do it together. So I think my Office of Faculty Affairs is already thinking about different strategies in this space. I think it starts not just with the faculty, but we need to be doing succession training. We need to take people who are interested in stepping up and train them and prepare them and make them ready for the day that when the opportunity opens itself, because it will, as we know, there's never enough talented people ready to step forward. So in my past roles, I've actually created institutes for leadership, particularly in minorities, but I think we could do something broader here since there isn't a program already. And stay tuned. Yeah, I think this is faculty development and professional growth should be a part of every single portfolio on campus. We're trying to do for students what we're not doing for ourselves. And we have to continue to grow and expand in that space to have happy employees, fulfilled faculty members who contribute to student outcomes.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
Good afternoon. Vice Chancellor, I'm the Chief Information Officer for the college. A pleasure. My question, of course, has to do with technology. And I just wonder, as a policymaker and an educator, in terms of teaching and learning technology, what are those items or those elements that keeps you awake at night? I know the ones that keep me awake. And we can have a separate town hall for that.
Thank you for your work. And I say that because I know how hard your job is. And one of the things that I'm trying to do, we've already started, is actually creating intersectionality between academic affairs and the Chief Information Office. All I see is a lot of one hand not talking to the other. Even at some of the highest levels, we can be so much more effective when we bring you in at the beginning, explain what we need, and together move these huge projects forward. So we're actually talking about developing an Office of Academics to make that conversation happen. Yeah, you know, the conversation that I have a lot is good faith isn't sufficient. Good intentions are not sufficient. You have to create intentional systems that require engagement when it needs to happen. And so we're working on that in the central Office of Academic Affairs. I mean, the obvious one that just jumps out at me, obviously, is cybersecurity, right? I mean, there's so much risk attached to that. We have some campuses, as you know, who've had some incursions in that space. Part of the problem is this federation versus distinctive campus model that we were just talking about. If everyone has their own program, it creates multiple entry points into it for cybersecurity purposes. So we're going to have to think and weigh and balance where that individual piece is necessary and where we need to maybe give a little bit and compromise in different spaces to make the whole safer and more really just lower the risk across the institution. The other is what we talked about, it's training. You know, it has to be part of the professional portfolio that we continue to grow and learn how to use these pieces of technology. It troubles me just a little bit, and maybe I won't get claps on this one, Derek. It troubles me a little bit that there's a bit of a mentality that I don't have to if I don't want to. And, you know, the driver's seat should be student needs, student success, and student outcomes. And so where there is a clear science of teaching that's going in a particular direction and data that tells us you need this skill set to effectively communicate and reach your student outcomes, it troubles me if someone who's a professional educator doesn't raise their hand and say, I want in on that. So I think you've got some culture change to do. I think overwhelmingly people believe that there is a group that is a little bit, and some of it's from COVID, right? We did a lot of stuff we didn't want to do. And I understand that. I didn't like telling people they had to do things either. But I think we need to move past that mindset into one, again, of proactive growth and engagement in the new tools that are out there for people in our position. It's really a privilege. Yeah.
Hello, good morning or good afternoon. My name is Omar. I come from the nursing department. This question is a little bit more specific towards us as a group. So we're located in the science department, the science building. So I feel like we're a little like separated, I guess, because we don't have our own section in the building. So it's mainly just the PA students and the high school students. So I just want to ask a question, like, what are your plans for like accommodating like more space to us specifically?
Well, first, seeing all of the growth around like this room, right? And the projects going on. Look, there is nothing more controversial to being a provost than space. Space is the coin of the realm in higher ed. And you won't like this part of management, but you guys are actually lucky. You have space to grow and develop as resources become available to continually add to your infrastructure. You have campuses that have no space. You know, they're a building and they're out of space and they want to grow, but they literally can't because they're framed in. I think I will leave this question to you, President, and your program. On the plus side, there's no doubt that we need to expand opportunities for our STEM majors, particularly in the health profession. So that helps that there's an increase in growth and demand to create some impetus to make change in that space. So I'm sure they're on it.
So I think we have time for one more question and then closing remarks. A question? Oh, wait for the mic, please.
It's okay. So you mentioned that the possibility of creating an Office of Technology at Central. And I'm wondering if you're considering the same thing for assessment. You know, ORITA is fabulous, but it doesn't get to the assessment at the college level. And I'm sure with the new strategic plan, you know, you plan to elevate all that up. So I'm wondering if you have a plan in place for developing an assessment office at CUNY Central.
Assessment at the campus and expertise and data gathering. So other than identifying the factors of the flag as part of the strategic plan, you know, we are in conversation about that. It's early days yet. But if you've got specific ideas about how that can be elevated to your management, because there's an equally loud group, I will tell you, that says don't police me, and you know that this is a campus issue, not a central issue. So I think this is one we're finding that balance. Give service to help you meet that assessment goal would be helpful to me to hear those ideas.
Thank you. Do you have any closing remarks?
You've been delightful. Great questions, great day. Again, I'm not sure that any campus will meet flying a plane. When I tell the chancellor, he's going to be jealous that he wasn't here today because you guys really rolled out the red carpet, which is appropriate. So just thank you. And the one thing I said today with the chairs is consider this the beginning of the conversation, not the one and done box check, because it's important to keep hearing your voices, to keep engaging in dialogue about what's important to you and helping us frame how we can be a most assistant to York. So thank you very much.
There was a round of applause for our EVC. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Provost. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for those who are online. We're so grateful for the opportunity. And please have a wonderful, wonderful day.